Hello and welcome to the final video in the Stitch With Me in 2024 online workshop. Today's video builds off the previous 12 months of prompts. You can find all those videos below. Today's video is kind of a two-parter. The first part is where I finish my snippet roll. I create a backing, I add elements to tie it all together, and I add a beginning and an end. I like to have a tie strap to secure my roll when it's not open, and I have a rod so that it rolls up like a scroll. The second part of the video is where I give a little recap. I show my entire snippet roll, tell you what I really liked about it, what I learned from this project. And I'd like to hear feedback from you on what prompts you enjoyed, what aspect you liked about your prompt or the workshop in general. I'm looking for help for creating the Stitch With Me in 2025 workshop. I have some ideas and I'll share those in a future video, but I'd love to hear from you. Let's get started with finishing up my roll. Here we go. So to finish off my snippet roll, I have a few parts I want to do. Eventually, I want to take the back here and I want to back it with this lace. This is an optional step, but I think it just makes it look a little more finished. And I love how the lace coordinates with the roll itself. I want to finish off the end piece with just some lace and a label, just signifying what this is. So I'll stitch down around here and then I'll stitch this lace into place. I want to have this ribbon so that I can just tie my roll closed. To make this ribbon a little extra special, I took this grosgrain ribbon in this off-white color, and I have this teal color, this very light, beautiful color. And I'm just going to stitch them using my sewing machine, just because it's a very long piece. I'll stitch them together in place. So I stitched the label and this little piece of lace on the end here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the beginning of the snippet roll. Now this will allow me to decide where I want my roll to wrap from. If I have my post here and I have it wrapping from the beginning of it, the part that will show will be the last prompt. If I do it the opposite way and I have this here on this side, then the first part of the snippet roll will show. And I think that's what I want to do. So I have that edge and I'm just going to tuck it under when it's time and stitch it down, but it's not time yet. What I have to do now is create the end here, and I might want something to stick out from here. I have my ribbon where I've stitched the blue to the top of it, the little teal color, and so I can decide how much of this I want to show, and then I can just put that ribbon there. So I kind of like that effect. So I will stitch this down off camera. But before I do that, I want to make sure my roll flows. And by that I mean here I have some of these stitched leaves and I have this dashed line with these colors for the first prompt, second prompt. I want to make sure that each section flows together. So over here, maybe I can add a few little dashes or more musical notes. And I'll do the same thing throughout the piece. I'll use the colors that I've already used and just add a little more flowing. So I think right up to relic, it looks really great. And now maybe I'll put in another one of those leaves. And I'll do the same thing throughout, maybe adding some leaves, some dashes. And then once I'm done with that part, we can work on the beginning and the backing. So now I've stitched both sides, the part where I'm going to attach the wooden piece, as well as what will be the beginning of my scroll when it's unwrapped. And I also stitched, as you can see here on the back, this ribbon down so that I can wrap my scroll with it. I've gone through adding all the little stitches that I wanted to connect the prompts, and now I'm ready to really finish it up. I chose to put something on the back. You don't have to do this. You can just roll up your scroll as you want. But I want to add a layer of this lace. So I've cut it into two pieces. This lace has a little metallic in it I'm not really wild about the metallic, but that's okay. I'm going to put the piece here, fold the edges under, and just with a sewing machine stitch just around the perimeter of this, just to give the backing a nicer look. Then we'll come back and I'll show you how I add my little post to the inside of the snippet roll. Okay, I finished stitching the back onto the back of the snippet roll, and I love how that came out. Here's the beginning of the snippet roll, and I have my band on it. And then to fully complete this, I need the end of the snippet roll by my December prompt, because this is the one that I want to be in the center of the roll. So now to stitch my post down, I'm just gonna fold it over, and I'm just eyeballing it. I know it has to be a little wider than the post. So if I was to stitch it down, I could feed this in, and then I could put either the bottom post on it, just like that, or I can add the bead. I don't know what I'll do. But right now I'm gonna hand stitch this down so it has a little channel for that to go in. So I stitched down the back here, and I love how it has that little scalloped edge. I just think that's very pretty. And then I stitched a line here, just hand sewn, to hold this little rod in place. I can remove it if I want, but I'm just gonna work now on adding the bottom cap here. I originally thought I'd use these wooden beads, but there doesn't seem to be enough room, so I'll just use the cap. All I'm gonna do is take a little bit of the all-purpose glue, put it in the cap, and then put it together. I'll let this dry, then we'll come back, review the entire piece, and I'll talk about some things I learned and what I really enjoyed about this project. So this is the completed snippet roll, the Stitch With Me in 2024. I love it. Let me just show you the sides, how it's all nicely contained, and you can see all these layers and bits of color. Very interesting to have that little rod holding it together. I have this long ribbon that I can just wrap or unwrap around to hold it closed. Again, any of these things are optional, not required. When you open it, you have the very end with the lace and the first prompt, and this is just indicative of things to come. You have the color and the texture, and it's just very pleasing. It's a big project that I could have done in a month or 2 months, probably closer to 2 months. But the idea that we worked on a little bit each month, and I allowed the ideas to settle and think about them, and just each one is completely different, but they kind of tie together because of the similar stitching and the colors. I branched out a little bit as well with some of the prompts. So we'll come back here to the musical prompt and the relic and the comfort. And then I have monogram with this little hanky, one of my favorite ones. The weaving on the entwined, just so much texture. The medal for the Olympics, the nest for the lair, the deer mask for that prompt, the fieldstone fireplace for autumn, the door for home. And then I finished it off with the label, more lace. And on the back, because I always like to look at the back of various sewn works, I have the edging and then all this beautiful lace. And the contrast of the very busy front of the snippet roll and the simple lace, I think is just lovely. Came out very well. So I wanted to go over some things that I learned, some things that I particularly liked throughout the process. One of the reasons I find this one so effective, and I've made other snippet rolls, is I really liked that I stuck with a color scheme. It's not required. In fact, it's very fun to, on a snippet roll, add things as you're inspired. But for this one, I really tried to focus on this color scheme, this gold and teal and cream and gray. And I pulled in pieces mainly because I was inspired by the color, like this little fabric here. To make it all flow, I continued with the colors. I repeated the shapes throughout the piece. And then when I came up with a musical prompt, I went back and added just a few little musical notes throughout my piece to keep it tied together. Even have a few stuck up here. I liked having a few 3D elements to my piece, whether it was this loose tea bag, which actually was very 3D, or just the little raised trim here to make the clef. I just think it added a little, something unexpected and something to really focus on. For the monogram prompt over here, I got very interested in creating this little hanky. Again, it has a little 3D element. It has the lace, the monogram. It just works for me. So this monogram prompt only contained this much of the snippet roll. Comfort contained this much. So I wasn't set on making an even 4.5 inches for each prompt. I had a little bit of freedom to let it flow. I like that some of my pieces went off the page. It kind of made it, instead of being framed work, it just continued. I think by having the pieces go off the page, I got to use up more of the space, and my piece overall looked larger than it is. I love the texture of the weaving, and I think that by creating that, I built on that as I went further. The texture of all these little folds in the metal, and then using my threadlings or the orts here for the layer, just increase that texture. I went further with the mask here and went really cutesy. The deer mask was just a very simple and beautiful animal to me, and I think the mask looks very cute. I love the little antlers, and again, that's pulling from previous lace pieces in my work. Because of the deer, that idea spurred on this fieldstone fireplace. In our house in New Hampshire, we had the fireplace and we had deer out front, and it just seemed to work beautifully emotionally for me. It flowed. It came out great. And then for the last one, I wanted for the prompt home to create something that was very generic but heartfelt. And then just a door with a wreath on it, something warmth instead of industrial. To me, that's home. And then I have the ending here, the stitch with me. I love that I can roll it up. Another thing that I think really worked for me with this one is using the words. These were just rubber stamped, but having the prompts in there kind of ties it together. It's not necessary. You can see how I could replace the tags here with either collage or more stitches, and that would have worked fine. But for this one, I really do like the way it incorporates a different element, that text element, and I'm partial to text. So I almost feel like you can never have too much text. Now, some of the things that I learned here was to let go of my idea that it had to be a set way. I created right angles. I created just little collage pieces. I went from direction and then created. None of these things particularly match, but they flow and they coordinate. In a snippet roll in the past, I usually had a theme. Maybe I do a particular season of the year or a color. So that kind of bound it all together. This was a bunch of unlikely prompts that when they came together, they flowed, and I was very pleased with that. The main thing I learned was for me to not overthink it and just enjoy the process. It's amazing how something as simple as that can really change your perspective on things. It was a great opportunity for me to create, and I enjoyed it tremendously. I really enjoyed seeing the work that people post in the Facebook group. Not only was it inspiring, it gave me ideas, and it really created a great community just to share things that
we have in common that we maybe didn't know. Many people share their ideas that were based on their experiences in life, and it was very illuminating. It was spectacular. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing my snippet roll process, how I created my little roll overall, and just how it came out. I appreciate you sharing a year of your time to see the entire process from the first prompt to the end. It went from just fabric to this beautiful, basically a fabric book. And I love it. Can't say enough great things about it. And I'm looking forward to next year's workshop. Haven't figured it out exactly yet, but I have some ideas, and I'd love your feedback on that.
So that's how I created my finished snippet roll. This year-long workshop was a bunch of work, and each month built up to allow the next month to be that much better. There were elements of inspiration. There were elements of deeper thinking. Oh, it was very rewarding. It was almost like creating a memory book, but a little bit differently. I used fabric and stitches, and it was very enjoyable for me. I'd love to hear from you. I want to hear what your favorite prompts were, what you liked about this workshop, and if you have any suggestions for the future one in 2025. The Facebook page, Stitch With Me in 2024, will just roll over. So if you want to stay in the group, you don't have to do anything. If you'd like to leave the group, you're not interested in this any longer, you can do that as well. I want to thank you all for joining me on this journey. Your work has been inspiring, and this community is spectacular. I hope you have a great day, enjoy your holiday season, and enjoy your stitching. Thanks for joining me today.